let's just sort of pivot, I guess, to the implications more within. We've touched on it a little bit in terms of like the election coming up. The Muslim Arab population alone in Michigan is not going to, in and of itself, doesn't necessarily have the numbers to, I think Biden won by, I don't know, 154,000 last time. I think there's maybe, there was 150,000 Muslim American voters last year. I don't imagine that they 100% went for Joe Biden, but to lose in Michigan a voting block or potentially is pretty damaging. Now, he's also meeting with union people, and he may have picked up some on that end, but across the board, this is an issue that increasingly feels like it is not going to help him in the election, to say the least. With that said,
and there was a political report which said like that the strategists are aware of the problem in Michigan and are trying to look for other votes that they can get to make up for the Arab American vote. Now, as you said, the Arab American vote might not be decisive, but it's not just Arab Americans that are upset.
Well, yes,
this.
exactly.
By all the polling, this is hugely unpopular with Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, young Americans. It's more unpopular with women than among men. So you're basically at war with your own party. And you mentioned the unions. Yes, big endorsement from the union, but the auto workers called for a ceasefire.
The AFT,
teachers, which is a huge thing when you consider if you know the Cold War history of that union and how aligned it was with hawkish foreign policy. The fact that they're coming out for a ceasefire is a big thing, and so you're basically at war with your own party. With the actual base of your own party. And as you said, it's an ideological thing with Biden. I think Biden sees himself as a foreign policy sage. As, I've been around for a long time. I knew Golda Meir,
Right.
And he thinks that he knows best, but he's in defiance of the party. And I think it seems like a very mistaken policy. And with the Arab Americans, I honestly say, I would never have the heart to talk to anyone who's Arab and say you have to vote for Biden. Trump is so bad. How can you do that after what's happened?
Right.
After what we've seen?
Right. No, we've been in that exact same, literally in that position, and we can talk about lesser of two evils voting. Very difficult to refute the case if you, particularly, if you have family in Gaza, in particular. But
I mean, talk about the Michigan trip. They had wanted to meet with this doctor there.
Yes,
which lost 90 family members in Gaza. Yep. I don't even know how you get the nerve to make that ask.
And you know what else they did? You know what else they did in Michigan? They knew protests were happening. They didn't say where the location of his event was going to be until the very last minute. And then it was super, super closed doors and closed off because they've seen that every rally he goes to now, they have to chant 4 more years over the Genocide Joe protests. And that's not really a great look either from an optics perspective.
Yeah. I mean, we had made fun of Hillary Clinton because she didn't go to Michigan, right? But Joe Biden will go to Michigan in hiding, in the witness protection program. He's like Dick Cheney out there. We don't know where he is. And so I don't know if that's you have a tight election. That doesn't inspire confidence. Sam,
now,
are you confident?
Oh no, I'm not confident. But I mean, at this point, I haven't been confident of anything since 2016. So I got out of that game. But but in terms of what they're thinking too, okay, we're also talking on a day where the job numbers are 350,000 new jobs. December was reassessed up. They revised the numbers up. Apparently, the Wall Street projections were half of that. I mean, it may end up having the impact of actually dropping the the stock market. Not that this is a measure of the economy, but just it is a measure of like expectations of what people thought was going to happen, because this is going to revive fears that the rate cuts that people have been anticipating, that I think Jerome Powell said were not going to happen maybe until May, may not happen until later in the year, at this point, because those numbers are not indicative of a cooling labor market. And wage growth reaccelerated. The acceleration of the wage growth had slowed, even though wages were still up. I can't help but think that, like, in the White House, they're like, the Israel stuff is going to help us with, the never Trumpers in the Republican Party and show that you have a steady hand. And the economy is going to get us back with the American public. And then abortion. And once Donald Trump gets convicted of a couple of different things or found liable and starts reintroducing himself to the rest of the American public, I'm not convinced that they in the White House think that this is a problem. I mean, they just announced, I guess, yesterday that they're going to sanction what amounts to 4 people, as far as I can tell, violent settlers who are not American in the West Bank. And there's a lot of American dual passport holders, frankly, who are some of the worst offenders, some of the worst of the worst in terms of the settler community. Certainly one of the most influential within the context. The Kahanists and whatnot, all of the, some of the worst, sort of like pre-Soviet immigration settlers in terms of, our take, came from Brooklyn, essentially. Yeah. So from that perspective, like what, I don't know, are you confident?
You know what? Like, if I thought the foreign policy was going to dominate, I would be a little bit worried, because I do think, like, unfortunately, Trump's strongman act appeals to people in times of chaos. I have to say, like, I mean, I think that the Democrats do have some advantages, and you name them, right? Like, I think it's not just the economy the numbers are good, but I think people are starting to feel it. Like, I think for a long time, people didn't feel it because of inflation, and wages actually gone down in real terms. I think that's flipped. And so the economy is better. The abortion is a huge thing. And, like, just Trump's, I think we can't underestimate how much, more than half the country really despises Donald Trump. And there's really, once it becomes crystal clear that he is the candidate for the Republicans, I think, I hope, it might become a little bit more even, but it's going to be tight. It's going to be tight. And I think you need, like, in a tight race, very small things can flip it. So 100%. I don't think you should take the risk of, continuing to, anger and frustrate people. I think the reason why Trump is ahead of the polls is not that his support never really goes beyond the 47-48%. It's that, like, a lot of people who voted for Biden aren't willing to say they're voting for Biden now. He has to get those people back. So I just don't think, I'm not totally pessimistic. It's also the case that Democrats have overperformed in special elections and continue to do so. And we'll get to this, but I mean, I think the culture war stuff hurts the Republicans a lot too. So there's all sorts of reasons, to be guardedly optimistic, but it's still, the last 2 elections were very close. Like, even 2020, the popular vote was strong, but within the electoral college, 40,000 votes, in 3 states, and Trump would have legitimately been reelected. So I think that, going into a close election, are you really gonna create a position where people who voted for you in the past just don't even want to talk to you? Will refuse to see you, where you have to, as Emma said, go around incognito, hi, I'm Joe Incognito, I'm running for president. I just think that's what worries me. I think if they weren't actively pursuing a policy that's so offensive to the base, I actually would be, guardedly confident. Like I would think, like, Biden has some strong cards.
And the sort of the cost on the other side of that, like calling for a ceasefire, it seems to me, had he called for a ceasefire in like week 3, I don't think that it would have cost him a single vote. Like that's completely within the sort of very narrow parameters of the acceptable reaction of even a sort of like, realpolitik, foreign policy move by a president. The interesting thing about this, though, I will say this, that I think certainly in the White House, if it is ideological for Joe Biden, he has not sort of come to grips with, and I think a lot of people have not really contemplated this. If I was concerned about Israel's long-term health in terms of support from the United States, this would be the last thing that I would want Joe Biden to do, because there is no way, I think, following this, that a critical perspective on Israel and a full-throated support of Palestinian rights for self-determination does not become a litmus test for the future Democratic nominees. Like, I think this is, I didn't anticipate we would hit this point for another 5 or 10 years, to be honest. But I always felt we would. But this is going to be the last Democratic presidency that supports Israel in this way, even or even does not support, I think, Palestinian statehood or some form, whether it's a one-state solution or a two-state solution, with vocally. I think that era of the Democratic Party, this has accelerated that process, it seems to me.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. And I to go back to the ideological point, like, we can't forget how old Joe Biden is. And if you do I think the math, he was in his mid-20s.
He's older than Israel. He's older than
the state of Israel. Exactly. Israel's a little child to him. And he actually, he was in his mid-20s when the 67 war happened. And that really crystallized and changed public opinion. The people, and that sort of liberal Zionism was forged then. And it is forged by people who think that Golda Meir is still the prime minister of Israel, who have that sense of this is a social democratic country with a utopian mission to make up for the horrific crimes of World War II, and they're fighting heroically against the bullies in the neighborhood. He is of that moment, and he has it to an extreme degree that's beyond the political spectrum. I actually think aside from Trump, I don't know how Trump would have handled October 7th, but any other president, whether it's and maybe Bush Jr., but Bush Sr., Clinton, Obama, Reagan would have called for a ceasefire within weeks. And we
saw Anthony Blinken trying to do that
in Beirut in the 80s. Reagan, when they went into Lebanon, and they, Reagan called up Menachem Begin and said, Menachem, this is a Holocaust. Those were the words that Reagan used. And you have to stop this. And at that time, Biden gave an interview not long after where he said Reagan was wrong. Israel should have just kept on going in Lebanon. And that shocked, he told this to Menachem Begin, and that shocked Begin, because Begin thought okay, this guy's going too far. So Biden's ideology is to the right of Likud.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
And it's unclear how much the Biden administration has to see in terms of domestic bleeding of their support before that happens. And I don't think that they're even I don't know that they're capable of even seeing it, as a real, as a non-worthwhile project in that circumstance.
Yeah, no, I don't. it's you have people who are formed in a particular way and have a view of the world, and Biden's view of the world is on this issue at least 20 or 30 years out of date.